I literally had to make a decision. If you're going to stay, then you're going to have to give this your all. When Edna was on that street and crack hit, she could have moved at any time she wanted. You talk about your grandma, you talk about all these things. She didn't have to stay on 36th Street. She could have went anywhere she wanted. And she fought to the very end.
The greatest people use their time intentionally. And that is like exactly what your grandmother did. Welcome to the Rethreading Lives podcast, where we talk about how to take your threads of harm and through the rethreaded process, transform them into something that actually helps you reach your potential. We'll talk with different leaders in our city and our country and find out what they're doing. You'll walk away from listening to this podcast with useful insights and captivating stories on how you yourself can rethread your life and your business. I'm Kristen Keene, and this is the Rethreading Lives podcast. So, welcome to Rethreading Lives podcast, everybody. I am honored to introduce Tiffany Clark to you. She is a Jacksonville native, and she runs her own company. She's CEO of C5 Cleaning Solutions, which I've already tried to hire her, and she has so much work that she doesn't want anymore. And I'm just going to read this about her company because we're going to talk about this later in the podcast, but I love this. Tiffany believes that you should clean because you care, not only to make a profit, and that a clean living and workspace gives families, residents, and employees a strong sense of pride for their personal and professional spaces. I love it. She's a U.S. Air Force veteran. She served active duty. She was in the United States Air Force Reserves. She has been administrative assistant and executive assistant for over 15 years, which I do not have that skill set. Which is why I find it so amazing when I meet the people that actually get the work done. Oh. She is a Duval County public school parent leader. So we're going to learn more about what that is and what that entails. Does it have it on here about your ministry? Okay. It didn't. There is one line about this in here. Line. Tiffany.
Oh, boy.
Okay. Tiffany also serves as the ministry leader for the Family Empowerment Ministry at the Potter's House International Ministries. Y'all, this is one line she put in here. And you will find out that is not worthy of one line. This is like a full-time job. Okay. So I'm gonna tell you how Tiffany and I met. So for those of you who are listening far away, or for those of you in Jacksonville, Tiffany, how we met is through the Potter's House, which is one of the largest, most influential, historically African-American churches in the entire Northeast Florida region. So very influential, like socially active, serving the community. And at Rethreaded, what we have been noticing is there is, in the world of human trafficking, there is I'm going to tell you mine and then maybe you tell your end how this works. Because God did this together.
It was a God thing.
We have been noticing the racial disparity in the world of human trafficking. So 50% of all human trafficking cases are women of color, women of color. Women who get access to services and actually make it to Rethreaded. So far, our history has been about 70%. And that's like across the board. Like if you look across the board. So there's half of the victims are Black, but not half are getting services. So we as an organization are like, what are we going to do with this?
Right.
Like, how are we going to conquer this? Right. And we formed a diversity part of our board. And like, well, how can we do this? So
exactly,
we started internally, like, well, we need our staff to represent who we want to bring in. So that was like something internally we're working on. Then externally, we're like, let's reach out to the people on the ground and bring education and bring them into our community. And let's transform this injustice through relationship. Right. That's why we're thinking. So Travis Williams, who was on episode 12, I believe, of the podcast.
Travis is a ministry leader
at
the Potter's House.
At the Potter's House. And he had introduced me to some people and nothing was working until at Rethreaded one day, we got a call on the phone, which was
boy.
Tiffany.
Oh boy.
saying, hey, do you guys want to come teach human trafficking? Do some human trafficking training at the Potter's house?
Right.
So maybe you can tell on your end, how did you end up calling Rethreaded?
Oh,
Not by anything I did. Or anyone at Rethreaded
no,
did.
it was it. You are absolutely right. It was nothing you did. However, it was something you did. You know. So how I ended up calling Rethreaded. So one of the things that I do as the ministry leader at the Potter's House, I love to train families. Like I'm so into making sure families are empowered and equipped to do whatever it is that God has put them on this earth to do, as mom, dad, grandma,
Mm.
single mom, whatever. And so one of the areas that was really near and dear to me, and not because I had a direct connection, but a direct connection, if that
Mhm.
makes sense.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, you know what? Human trafficking does not get discussed in the Black church. We don't talk about it. It doesn't get discussed in the Black home.
Mhm.
And so it's time to have that discussion. Like seriously have that discussion. And I had looked at a few other organizations and then it just clicked. I'm like, I know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody.
I love it.
First of all, like, are we name dropping here?
You can name drop.
You can name drop in here? Okay, so let
Name
me
drop.
name drop. So I'm like, Lakeisha Bird.
Ugh.
I remember when I saw her on this panel and I'm like, that's the place. That is the organization. So I'm like, doop 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 doop. Let me call, let me email, let me see what we can do so I can, find out if Rethreaded can come to the Potter's house. Because I so want them to sit and talk to our families and share and teach and help us. Like, help us. Help me help you. And so that's how, with Rethreaded, I'm like, I want to help, let them help us. And so I called and got an email, got another email, and then when you email back and call back, like, hey, like you were so excited.
I was
like,
so excited.
What is she so excited about? We haven't even met yet.
And I'm like, yes, yes, yes.
You were so excited.
I was.
You were so excited. But I was excited. So one, I was glad you called back. But then I'm like, why is the CEO calling me back? Like, I know she has somebody that can make these calls.
No,
I'm like,
I tried to hire you.
Oh, that's a whole nother, we'll get to that later. And so that's how, because I really wanted to have there's some conversations you just have to have. And sometimes you have to bring the opportunity, you have to bring that conversation. You have to literally open the door and say, come in this room. We are going to talk, like with your children. I don't care what you have going on. We're going to talk about this today. And so that's how I felt about Rethreaded and human trafficking. I'm like, no, we have got to talk about this because it is directly impacting our women in this community.
I love it. And it started off, you're like, yeah, you could come in on Wednesday night, come and teach us maybe when the adults are at Sunday school, and there'll probably be like 45 people. And I was like, okay, that sounds great. And then suddenly you talk to
Angel McLaughlin's Bishop's daughter.
Yes. And now on a Wednesday night, we'll be training 300 to 400 people.
Yes. And so it turned into, so originally that was the plan. So originally when we sat around and I kind of talked about it, I thought about, okay, well, we'll do a training session with some parents. We'll bring them in on Wednesday night doing our Bible study while our pastor is already preaching and teaching the word. And so we'll take our parents that night. Some of them can stay back and in the classroom. And then, Angel made the suggestion, okay, why not? This is Bible study. Like this is we're freeing families. So why not bring this into the sanctuary for everyone to hear and make it available for the churches we are connected to? And so of course I'm like, hey, yes. And yes.
And I'm like, yes.
Yes, please. Let's do that. Because I just know, Kristen, like for real, this is an issue that we have got to, as the Black community, because it is happening in so many unique ways. And we need to expose it. It needs to be exposed.
And I like that you use that word, because it's often labeled as something else and not called out for what it is. It's labeled as prostitution. She's choosing this.
Right.
She's loose. Like all the things
Right.
get wrapped up in it.
Exactly.
And if we can just I love that, because that's what's happening in the world now. I think it's exposure of what it really is.
And so that's what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
We want to do and will do, on April 3rd, Wednesday,
excited.
in our Bible study that night, which is, it speaks to the ministry of the Potter's House and how serious we are about not just being a mega church, but oftentimes our pastor, not mega church, mega impact. What are we doing to impact this community? And these families, these women, their children that they've lost, that they no longer talk to, they live in this community. So for me, the Family Empowerment Ministry at the Potter's House, this is just a little bit of what we could do, to invite other pastors, invite teachers, invite, the schools in the community that are in our neighborhood to come out and hear the truth behind this. So.
I'm getting so excited when I think about it. I mean, it's what we prayed for.
Yeah.
And it felt like it felt like the door was opened in this way that is bigger. And I think it's going to be more powerful than we could imagine. And Katrina, who's going to be sharing, who is on podcast episode 14.
Okay.
She lost her daughter when she was in human trafficking, and she has been praying. She always prays that, God, I need to educate people about this. I need to tell Kai's story. And then this is just another example of here's a platform to educate. And she comes from, she's Black. She comes from that community, and she's like, no one talked about it. No one talked about it. Nope. She's like, I just had so much shame and I got stuck in it. Anyway, it's going to be great. Yeah. So I'm just going to brag on Tiffany. So this is why you asked me, why did I invite you to be on the podcast? Yeah. So this is what I do know is that when I'm reading your bio and I'm like reading off all these accomplishments, you run your own business, military, mom, married forever. You then put this one line in here, how you are the ministry leader for the Family Empower Ministry. When I met you, I didn't know any of this other stuff. I just thought in my head, you worked at the Potter's House and were the
yes, you did.
Family Empowerment Minister. And I thought ministry, and that this was your full-time job.
You did.
This she does for free as volunteer. So essentially, you work 2 full-time jobs. One, how you make your financial living. The other one's how you serve. And you're a mother and a wife and whatever else you do. I don't know what you were doing today, something about some conference. But
yes.
And then I asked you, because I knew as soon as I heard that, I was like, she has a why. That you have a why that is so deep inside you that you will do this for outpay. And I was like, there's something inside her that is special that she will serve like this. So it's like, I need to know this. And initially we had met for coffee because I was trying to recruit her.
Yeah, you were.
That lasted about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
You're very happy in your life right now.
I had to help you.
Yeah. And then it ended up that she became a guest on the podcast. So I want to start a little bit because as I was writing these questions down and thinking about what I know of your story, the thing that I remember most was the story about your grandmother and when that changed. And how I think in all of our lives, we have something that marks us and it creates some kind of thread in our life. And a lot of times I think we spent then the next, whatever part of our life trying to heal from that thread. And I'm going to just review the Rethreaded process really quick for our listeners and for you and me. Yes. So the Rethreaded process has 5 ingredients. And the idea is when you go through something hard, it initially shrinks your potential.
Mm-hmm.
So these 5 ingredients kind of make up your sphere of potential.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go through hard things, it shrinks, it decreases your capacity to hold all the things of life, hold the hard and the good.
Right.
But as you pour into these 5 ingredients and you pour power into it, then your potential increases and it creates space.
Mm-hmm.
And in this space, you can hold the hard and the good, and you can hold it all with love.
Mm-hmm.
And these elements are openness, which is the ability to be honest and vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Honest is the ability to be very, very honest with yourself. Look in the mirror and admit what is. I'm still working on this. Vulnerable is the ability to be open with other people.
Right.
Then there's purpose. So this is basically the essence of how you're made, the unique way that you show up into the world and bring love, regardless of what role you're in.
Right.
So you bring the same person into your motherhood, into your CEO role, into your ministry role, then your vision. So the vision is the belief that things can change. I can't wait to hear your vision, because vision is I think it's the belief that things can change, and you believe it so much, you will take action for it.
Right.
And I think vision, you have to be able to tolerate the unknown. People hate the unknown. And then community are the people around you that love you, help you, but also hold you accountable to reach your potential. These are the people that don't let you off the hook.
Yeah.
And these ingredients work together. And as you pour power into each, they automatically pull on each other.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one is time.
Yeah.
And time is our currency to heal and reach our potential. We're either usually in a hurry, and we're not being intentional with our time because we're hurrying,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or we get stuck.
Mm.
We waste time. So those are the 5 ingredients and kind of how they work. And what I would like to do is kind of go back and start maybe at the beginning, because we kind of know where you are now.
Right.
And we know that you're not hiring anyone. So we don't need to pitch your business.
No, you don't. You don't have to do that. You've already said where I work or what I own. So
sorry, everybody. And maybe go back to your child. And I love how you talked about your street. So maybe you can paint a picture of the street where you grew up in those early years.
Absolutely.
Where the good threads. I mean, these at this point, it was a majority happy was threaded in.
Yes. So 36 and Moncrief.
36 and Moncrief.
The happiest place is the happiest place in Jacksonville. The sounds, like even as I'm sitting here, I hear Run DMC. I hear Beastie Boys. I hear Little Sally Walker sitting in a saucer, Fly Sally Fly, all of that, hopscotch and hula hooping and red light, green light. That was 36th Street, barbecues and music and fun and family, like Miss Nadine, to our left, the Bostons to our right, Miss Honey down the street, Mr. Ernest on the corner, where we could go get a free soda, RC and put the peanuts in it. Like that was life. Now laters. That was 36th Street. It was like the epicenter to me, like in my mind, of our day, because everybody knew everybody. We laughed together. We cried together. You got your butt towed up by whoever wanted to tear it up. They didn't care. And then you got your butt towed up again, But it was so full of life. You know what I mean? It was so full of life. The way that we cared for each other, and everybody on 36 and Moncrief cared about you. They cared about how your day was at school. They cared if you didn't have rice. They cared if they could bring the chicken, if you had the rice and they had the chicken, so we all could eat chicken and rice that night. That's what they cared about.
It was like you had community built into you at an early age.
Very early. I, as a child, I did not know what it was like not to have a village. because I was born into it. I was born into the village of 36 in Moncrief.
Love it.
So I didn't know what it was like not to have people that weren't your relatives care for you and care about you. Because you can care about me and do nothing for me. But the individuals on 36th Street, they cared for you and they cared about you. And so when one hurt, we all hurt. When one laughed, we all laughed. Because we were family, period. And then, to watch the older women, like mighty to me. Like, I love Michelle Obama, but honey, when I tell you, she have nothing on Miss Nadine and Miss Boston.
Miss Nadine. And who?
And Miss Boston.
And Miss Boston.
And Miss Honey.
And Miss Honey. Okay.
And Miss Edna Benefield, which my grandma, Miss Edna.
Miss Edna.
And so my story truly begins.
And they were all friends?
All friends. All friends. Raising their children and grandchildren. And my grandmother, she was a woman on that street that, before my grandmother gave her life to Jesus Christ, she had a very colorful background. So she ran numbers, she gambled, she made moonshine. She was like all things. One thing, she needed to know Jesus. So Jesus needed to get grandma. Jesus really needed to capture grandma because she was nothing to play with now. She was nothing to play with. But the one thing about her, even as someone who was not a believer, there was like a code. There was like a code. You don't lie. You don't cheat. Mean what you say what you mean. And that was the street. Like we didn't mistreat anybody.
That was the whole code on the street.
Yeah, you don't. You don't come into this neighborhood and take advantage of us. You don't come into this neighborhood with all that foolishness. Okay, you go on 33rd or something with that, but
not 36.
Not on 36 in Moncrief. And it really was. It was like a code. And my grandmother, because we were at the very beginning of 36 in Moncrief, you had to pass two houses. The one on the corner, which was Mary Helen, Miss Mary Helen, the Bostons, and Miss Edna, my grandmother. So if Mary Helen's grandmother didn't get you, the Bostons would get you, but Edna definitely was going to get you. So you just didn't come on that street. And I just remember her being so loving. She really was. She loved you. She gave. My grandmother gave herself to that community. I mean, she gave herself and could probably only read on a third grade level,
Yeah.
But when I tell you, she poured everything into every child, every adult, not just us, her grandchildren. She meant so much to the families on that street because she gave. And so when she did, I met the saved grandma, the saved and Holy Ghost filled grandma. I didn't know
I didn't know grandma.
I didn't know Edna. I probably didn't want to know her then. But so I got to experience life with this woman who loved the Lord more than, oh my gosh, it was beautiful. Like, you ever watch somebody in worship, just unadulterated? Like, they don't care what you think. And they're just in the presence of, like, my grandmother didn't give a flip what you thought. Her faith, her love for Christ, and her love for people.
And it sounds like your grandma was consistent in it all. It's not like she was going into worship and then do something else, but she was consistently with love.
She modeled this in front of me, which unfortunately is lacking a lot of times in our Christian community. But she modeled holiness. She modeled righteousness. She modeled peace. So when things were chaotic, she would, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Oh, no. No, I trust God. And she would say, I trust God. He will work it out. And so imagine as a child watching this, not quite sure what all that means, but I watched her navigate through life as this mighty woman. Like, she was mighty to me. Her voice was mighty. Her eyes were mighty to me. And so watching her interact with people when people would come to our house for food or for clothes, and somebody's child needed clothes for school, and she would go into a room in the house, and she would have bags of things. And what size does your baby wear? What shoe size is your baby? Let me fix some biscuits. Give me a second, I'll bake a cake. So and so baby is in the hospital. So give me a second. Tiffany, go run this down the street. Tiffany, go take this down the street. And that's how I grew up. That's what I knew. That's what I saw. It wasn't something somebody told me or I read or I saw on some Lifetime special or Netflix and chill. I lived community, like for real, for real. And so,
And it's like that. It's like the sense of being safe.
yeah. And I did. Like I didn't feel unsafe on that street growing up.
Tucked in.
We slept with, like, during the summertime, because one thing, she was so old fashioned. Like, she didn't have AC.
Ooh.
Like, I don't know what was up with that.
Oh.
Why this woman did not have air conditioning. Because by this time, I'm like, you can get central heating there, Miss Edna, but she didn't. So we had a lot of fans. Crazy. I'm telling you, that's crazy. But the front door would be open. We had a screened-in porch, windows open, fans on. She had no concern that somebody was coming in that house. No concern that somebody was going to roll up in there and do anything. And I truly believe that the hand of God was so on 36th Street that we were so shielded and protected. We were safe. You just said we were safe. When I say safe in his arms, safe in his arms. And because of the men and women on that street they truly believe that. So, and when I tell you I miss her, I hear her, I see her, I literally, like, it's just amazing what she poured into me. Like this woman that could barely, she could barely read, but she poured so much into me about family, working hard, loving people. That was important to her. That I cared about people.
How do you think she knew that? Like, where did that come from in her? How did who did it for her? Or did she find it in herself? I mean,
I believe because she grew up just the opposite. She grew up, of course, during a time, do as I say, just don't ask me any questions, that type of rearing. And so I believe when she became an adult, and as she just grew as a woman, grew as a mother, none of her children had the same father. Everybody had different daddies. My mom, everybody had a different father. And so somewhere along the line, something in her, as she began to probably look at her children and looking at her own family and looking at other families, because she was always so conscious of other people.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Like she didn't just care about her daughters. She cared about your daughter. So she treated your daughter like she treated her daughter. So she would tear your daughter butt up just like she would tear her own daughter butt up. And in the same breath, she would pull your daughter close just like she would pull her daughter close. Just like she fed her family. There was no way in the world anybody on that street would go hungry. And my grandmother knew it. That was unheard of. That we're eating and the house down the street isn't? No, she didn't play that. And so I think as she began to evolve as a parent, you know what I mean? As a grandparent, it just grew and grew, and it was just her.
And those women on the street, Miss Honey, were they all the same age as your grandmother?
Yes, all of them were the same age.
So were they all kind of like doing this together?
They were.
Like evolving this and loving this and creating this together?
Because they all as families would move to 36th Street, and they kind of, all of them, they lived in homes. And so Palm Terrace was across the street. And I always tell people before the gate went up, Palm Terrace did always have a gate. It always didn't look like what it looks like now. And so the families, as a family would arrive on the street, a new family, they would just, and it could have been families that were her age. But as families arrived on the street, you just got pulled into that community. You got pulled into that environment, and you've quickly found out that you could adapt to this. Like, you can do this. It wasn't, oh, they so nosy. Nobody felt like that. There was so much togetherness, so much together, so much love.
And then, well, for context, the neighborhood Moncrief
Mhm.
had a turn,
It did.
and now it's in. For those of you who are not familiar with it, not from here, it's
Mhm.
a zip code where there's a high crime rate, a
It
high
is.
infant mortality rate. I
It
mean,
is. All the things.
all the things happened.
All the things.
Yeah.
And so we did. Crack hit 36 in Moncrief.
I don't know what that makes me want to. After you describe this,
I know.
it's
I'm
just like,
telling you.
ugh.
It's like and that's just what you just felt. That's how it felt. Because I don't think any adult on that street ever expected. They were not ready for that. Because it was like like in a bubble. Now, we know good and well there was things going on in Jacksonville. But crack hit. And when it hit hard. And it had a ripple effect on that street. My uncle, which is my mom's oldest brother, my grandmother's oldest son, uh, the first time I remember as a child, my memory of him is at the back door, out of his mind, just looking like someone had hit him with a truck, and he was strung out on crack, just strung. And I remember him coming to the back door, and I was in the bed, and I remember grandmother going to the back door and opening the door and giving him something to eat. And he left, and he would be gone for months. And when we see him again, smelling like urine, smell just off. Oh, that's the smell. Awful. And then I remember Miss Nadine's son. I remember when and it just went down the street. And it was almost unreal watching. Like, like, in my mind, I remember these men, who were like older brothers to us, and they just got a taste, got a whiff, and got addicted. And so on that street, the crime rate, you started hearing bullets. Palm Terrace was turned inside out. Inside out. And I remember as a child, like, what in the world? What happened? One dose, one hit. Don't know who brought it to the street. Don't know if a teenager went out. I have no clue. But I do remember when it hit us.
What did it do to your grandma and Miss Honey? And
So, oddly enough, so Miss Honey, who was um, an entrepreneur, Miss Honey did a lot of stuff. You could get a whole lot from Miss Honey's house. You just ask. You you could get weapons from Miss Honey's house. Miss Honey had all kind of stuff in the house. I'm telling you, you could get all kind of stuff in Miss Honey's house. And so the families around us, a lot of them stayed. So Miss Honey actually stayed on 36th Street until she passed about, oh gosh, Miss Honey's been gone now for about 8 years. I don't think it's been quite 10 years, but she never left 36th Street.
Wow.
The city of Jacksonville actually redid her home. Like, they put a new roof on, new plumbing, and all kind of stuff. I don't think she would ever moved anyway. She just, I'm not leaving. Like, Wakanda forever. I am going. She's not going nowhere.
She was the patriarch.
She ain't going anywhere.
I mean, the matriarch.
Yeah, matriarch. She wasn't going anywhere. And so the women, and it was in just like in a lot of Black communities, our women are the authority. They are the power. And so as as this began to take form on our street in so many different ways with our families and destroying families, because that's pretty much what happened. The community deteriorated. Um,
Oh, there's your why.
it did. It and so, but Miss Edna, she remained, and this is very true. My grandmother was not moved. Didn't move her. It didn't shake her, and she did not move off that street. When individuals began to break in homes, no one ever broke in my grandmother's house. When people's houses were getting bullets, not one bullet ever went into my grandmother's house. Um, she began to, and I was like on a crusade. So she would come out of the house, and I remember this, and she would go to the corner of 36 and Moncrief, and she would share the gospel. She got very intentional about people coming to know Jesus Christ. Like she, like almost, I'm like, okay, like you need to calm down. I got friends. You need you like a mad woman. You embarrassing me, but she would, because her faith, her faith in Christ, that was her foundation, and she didn't care crack or whatever was not going to shake it or move her. And so she began to, and I made my mom talk about this to this day. She would walk up and down 36th Street praying, just praying for the families. She'd go on the corner, used to be a cleaners on the corner, and she would stand on that corner and just pray and just cry out to God for 36 and Moncrief. And then one day coming home, she was in her car. One day she came home, and I wasn't there, but she was driving. And one of the neighbors, when they told us, they said she passed the house. Like, why, Miss Edna, where's she going? Why is she pulling up in her driveway? And she didn't get out the car. So, of course, finally somebody walks over to the car, and she's slumped over. She's had a heart attack. She has died.
Oh my gosh.
She has died.
How old was she?
I'm 46 now. I was in the 6th grade.
Oh.
So grandmother was she 50 yet? I think she had turned 50.
That's like us.
Yeah. She died very young. And I remember I was at my father's house when he told me. And I didn't I remember not believe, like, that doesn't even make sense. Because I had in my mind, never ever thought, definitely didn't think about death and her and putting those in the same sentence, ever. And I remember that day. I remember thinking things are going to change. Don't know how. Things are going to change for me.
And it was scary.
Yeah. And they did. My life changed, like seriously changed. I had been taught at a very young age by this woman the importance of serving God and how that connects to your everyday life, how to make it make sense. Not spooky, but how does that make sense? How does that make sense for someone, for a child? And I was taught worship and praise and how to read my Bible. Like my grandmother took the time. And I remember like the light just going off, like somebody turned the light off on me. And I had no desire to do any of those things anymore. And my life showed it. It definitely showed. And I say that because that's why I believe it's so important that we teach our children how to serve God for themselves. they cannot live your walk. They have to experience him for themselves. So when that day does come, that they are able to say, mom's gone, grandma's gone. I can do this on my own, and I didn't know how to do it on my own.
Yeah. I mean, you were 12, right?
Yeah. And so,
And that's such a. I want to
yeah,
pause here for 1 second and just say, every great person that I've known, and then I bring a lot of people here on, but what I hear over and over again is just what you said, is that the greatest people use their time intentionally, because somehow they figure out it's our limited resource. We don't get it back. And you have to be intentional with it. And that is like exactly what your grandmother did.
Yeah. And she did. She made it count. Every moment, every meal, every bag of clothes, every person, every hug, every kiss, every child she talked to, every person that was on crack in that neighborhood, every prostitute. She made it count.
And it's if we're talking about this Rethreaded and the power, like, there is time is your power, right?
Yeah.
Like when you can focus it in, it becomes like a laser, I guess, instead of a
this thing that you're just throwing around
Yeah.
like, let me do a little this, let me do a little that.
Your grandma loved like a laser. Okay. I remember my second point because I started talking about your grandma. So
Well, then life moved on. And
yeah, in life. And maybe you can walk us through, like, maybe in your life,
Yeah.
maybe like three moments where I know, because we all have those moments, like a shift, a
Yeah.
shift, a shift. And
Yeah.
you've done amazing things in your life. You stayed married through all of this. I know a little bit of your,
Yeah.
not easy.
Yeah.
So maybe there's like three major things you can share with us.
Number one, definitely, I have to say, becoming a teen parent, a teenage mom.
How old are you?
I was 15 when I got pregnant. I was 16 when I gave birth at University Hospital.
At a university hospital.
Yeah.
And what happened inside you in it?
For some odd reason, the birth, not even the pregnancy, because the pregnancy, I was still kind of like, I knew I was pregnant, but it didn't dawn on me like how this was going to shift life for me. But the moment he was born, James Crawford Clark, the moment Jane, he'll get me for that because that's not a name we get to share. I knew, I'm like, you got to do better. You are responsible for another person. You need to get it together. And I probably didn't say it. I probably said something else. I'm sure at 16 years old, I know I said something else. I had a very nasty mouth as a teenager. And looking into his face, my husband at the time, my boyfriend at the time, James's father, who I've now been married to for 28 years, he sold drugs. And so a year after, and this is fast forward, a year after James was born, my husband went to jail in Quincy, Florida, and he was gone for a while. And during that time, I remember thinking, okay, like you got to just like what are you guys doing? And shortly after, I did get married in high school. I got married in high school. I did. I was at Rains High School, doing a dual enrollment. And I know they still do this. I was doing a dual enrollment at Rains and at A. Philip Randolph. And kind of just looking at my life and saying, okay, what do you want? Like, what do you want, Tiffany? What do you want? You want marriage, you want a child, and you want to stay in Jacksonville? Like, what is it that you want? And not only that, what are you trying to leave behind? what do you want to be remembered for? You just had a baby and like, what else? And so that would be the first thing.
So it sounds like at that moment, you started to form a vision for your life.
I did. I did. My mom had never married any of our fathers. So there's 5 of us. And so the one thing that I knew I wanted to do and not be, like, I don't want to be a baby mama. I don't want to be your baby mama. So either you marry me or you just, like, you can get them on every other weekend on Christmas and Thanksgiving, but I'm not going, I don't want to be a baby mama. In high school, so we get married. I'm 18 years old. And then in my mind, I'm like, okay, child, husband, need a career. Let's go. Army recruiter don't call back. Air Force recruiter does. Air Force it is.
Oh, to be 18 again.
So I'm like, okay. So here I am. I've graduated from high school. I get married. I'm in the Air Force and I'm just like, oh my gosh. What am I doing? I just got out of high school. What am I doing? What am I doing? And because we were just very immature, like we did a thing.
You're immature, but also I feel like what I'm hearing in your story, though, there was also a sense of purpose and some kind of bravery, like a bravery, to do that.
And it's because in my mind, I'm like, I have a child. I need to be married. That's family. Now, mind you, I was raised in a single parent home, like a co-parenting situation with my grandma and my mama. But I'm like, I didn't want that. I need a husband. I have this, and this is your baby. So this is not somebody else's baby. This is your son. So we are going to do this and we're going to be a family.
So not even really knowing what that meant. You're just if you're married, we're family. It's going to be different.
I didn't have a clue. I didn't have a clue. I'm like, we'll figure it out. And baby, when we tried to figure it out, it was a whole lot of things. The things when you're 18.
I can't imagine.
With this baby and traveling and in the Air Force and in the military and not just dumb. Nothing. And all fair, my husband was not ready to be married. I'm like, we doing this, whether you want to or not. I will not be your baby mama. Let me make that clear.
So let's get married.
I will be your wife. We can do wife. But we're not doing baby mama.
So it was also a decision made out of, though. I mean, the heart of it was really, I want it to be better.
Yeah.
I want to do better.
Yeah. And, I'm fast forwarding, of course, but there was so much about me that.
Were you a Christian? Were you following?
So
did you have your faith yet?
Yes.
Solid.
Yes. So one of the things that happened to me, while my husband was in jail and I had this baby, was that I remember I attended Shiloh Metropolitan Baptist Church at the time. And I remember being in high school and just like, you know better. Like, stuff, when it comes to the Christian faith that most teenagers your age don't know when it comes to having a relationship with Christ. And I like literally having these conversations with myself. And so one day I'm sitting in my bedroom and I'm like, Lord, I know, first of all, I know you're real. And I believe, like, I don't need to walk down the aisle. I believe Jesus Christ is the Son of God. I believe you died and was resurrected. And I believe you are living, sitting at this is literally me. And so that decision, James being born and me making a public declaration in my bedroom as a teenage mom that I am going to be a follower of Jesus Christ. And I'm going to do this as a senior in high school. I got a boyfriend who is not a believer, but he doesn't know we are going to get married when he gets out of jail because I'm going to tell him. And it did shift things. So my faith, yes, I received Christ at a very early age. because I wasn't discipled very well. So I had a lot of humps and bumps in the
Yeah.
road. But I did. And so as we begin to kind of navigate through life together, James and I, with our new baby, my Air Force career, um, I still, I won't say unhappy, because when I think of happiness, I think of you can be happy one minute, happy the next.
Mhm.
It's based on circumstance, It's just based on
But
circumstance.
I feel like you probably, this thread
Yeah.
was still hanging out there,
Yeah.
still speaking to you, still hurt.
Because I'm just
Still figuring it out.
and I would often say, like, Edna, man, if you were here, why, man, you need to be here. You need to be here. And so as life began to move on, Kristen, as it does, um, I just knew family, the things that I had been taught. I'm like, what am I going to do with that? What why would she show me that? Like, why would she take the time? Like, why did I grow up on that? I could have grown up anywhere, but why did I see both extremes? Like, I saw both extremes. Like a good swimmer that, you swimming with dolphins and then you drown and everybody's like, how did he drown?
Mm.
It was like both extremes. And I lived both of those. And so as my life went on, I wanted to know, like, what's the connection to this? Like, what is Edna and marriage and, this baby, like, what am I supposed to do with this? And so as my life began to move on and things kind of shifted, I eventually did get out of the military. And I got out because um, my husband was stationed in Virginia. I was overseas, and it was it really was difficult. He was in the Navy. So it was extremely difficult for us to be stationed together. That, it's really unheard of. And I could have stayed in, but I got tired of kind of fighting the red tape of us trying to stay in the same spot. And so I eventually did get out. And life be life. And that's one thing about life. Life continues to life.
No matter
I
what.
don't care what your age is. It just life's life be life. And so I did. I did eventually get out of the military. And by this time, now 3 children later, uh, James and then Jeremiah and then Danielle, and got an opportunity. And this is kind of one of the things I would say is very significant, at least for me. Um, when I came to the Potter's house, I came to the Potter's house at a time when my marriage was just toe up from the straight flow up. Like, just it was really bad. It was just really bad. And I had never heard of the Potter's house. Lived in Jacksonville all my life, never heard of it. Had, left, went overseas, never heard of it. So when we eventually moved back here, I wasn't, I was backslidden and wasn't going to church or anything. Just kind of like, I'll get to that hopefully. I'll just get to it when I get to it. And someone at work invited me to the Potter's house. I'm like, oh, I've never heard of that. And she's like, you never heard of the Potter's house? No, I haven't. So she invited me. And she had invited me a few times. I never went. And on the day that I went, I sat in the very back row. And the man who I know now is Elder Ronald Scheider preached a sermon that said it's never too late. And I sat there and I remember the tears, of course, the emotions. And I'm like, oh, I'm just being emotional. Okay. So I left that day, you know, didn't think anymore about, attending the Potter's house. So the young lady invites me again. She's like, you ought to come back. I'm like, I'm okay, nice service. She's like, I'm telling you, you need to come back. And so I did. This time when I visited, I didn't sit on the back row, but I was very close to the back. And this time, Bishop McLaughlin preached a message entitled, He Wants to Heal You. So, I don't need a third, okay, I heard you the first time, Lord. It's never too late. And you want to heal me. Okay, I'm going to answer this time. I'm going to answer your text this time. And so I remember getting up.
What did you just say?
I'm going to answer your text message this time. You know how we do. We ignore text
Yeah, we
message.
ignored. Oh, yeah.
We ignore, baby. I'll ignore your text message. And you won't know I read it either because I got no, you will not know that it's been read. Or delivered, for that matter. So I make my way down, you make your way down. And that starts another journey, of me making a decision. Okay, God, so much has happened in this little thing called life. And while at the Potter's house, and this is really important to me, because while at the Potter's house, when I got there, I was in such a funk. Oh my gosh. It was the idea that my marriage was just the way it was. It was. I was at a point where I'm like, oh, see, if we had not gotten married so early, this is if I had just went on and went in another route, and I was too young to marry you, and I did, and look where we are now.
You were stuck.
And I felt that way. I did. I honestly did. I felt like, oh God, I just can't, like how do I get out of this? I don't want, and I realized I don't want, this is not what I want. Like I seriously. And so I remember I needed to, at the Potter's house, we have ministry development. So we have new members classes, discipleship classes, evangelism classes. We have financial peace classes that new members go through. And
I just need to pause it for 1 second.
Yes.
And say this to the audience, because I feel like there's probably people listening who have been in their marriage.
Yes.
And been at a place where they're stuck in the blame and shame. They're stuck in the years of history. They're stuck in the pain. They're stuck in regret. And I just want viewers I just want to make sure we acknowledge that and acknowledge our listeners that,
like that's real, but that's
real.
Good. It's real. Mm-hmm. And for someone to say that, oh, that'll pass, or
right,
it's just new marriage. It's just a 10-year hump. It's just no, there are people like Tiffany who really do feel, and it's painful. You feel it. It's a weight. You carry it. You carry it when you get up and go to work, when you're getting your children ready for school. It is a real emotion, a real pain. And so I'm glad that you acknowledge that, because oftentimes in marriage, we won't say what we're really feeling. Let me be, not that we want to disrespect our spouses, but you want to be so respectful, and you want to be so, I don't want to hurt your feelings. And sometimes sometimes the things that we never say need to be said. I'm hurting and I don't want this.
Honest and vulnerability. Yeah. Honesty and vulnerability.
And I know it hurts for you to hear that. It hurts for me to say that, but I'm hurting in my marriage. And so that's where I was. So when I got to the Potter's house, that's where I was. And I had 3 children. And so I joined the Helps Ministry, which is a ministry that does a number of things from cleaning to repairs. And so every Saturday I would go up to the Potter's house with my 3 children, and we would clean, which was my therapy, because Black people don't go to therapists. We find other ways to deal with our pain. So that was my therapy, because I was not going to anybody to tell them how, no, that's not your business. Y'all know I know what I'm talking about. We don't go to therapy.
I love this. I just feel like I got an insight.
We handle things. We're like resilient. Baby, I know how to deal with that. And so I would go every Saturday. And I would fix the children a lunch. They had a kitchen in the nursery. I would make a casserole. We would eat breakfast at the house. I would, be there all day because my husband would be wherever he was. And we would clean. We would clean the bathrooms, and all the while, even in all the pain and hurt, I'm still believing God is going to heal this marriage.
Really?
Like, I'm still believing that. Like, I'm like, I don't want to stay with him. I almost felt like, you know how you have the little person right right here?
Yeah.
Like, he can heal your marriage. Girl, you better get out. God's going to use you and your husband mightily. Believe that if you want to. Just like so confused. I was so confused. But I would go and I would just talk to the God, I'm hurting. Like, I want to get out of this. I don't I don't even know if I love him. Did I just get married because of Jane Jane? Like, seriously, like, God, for real, like, let me go. Let me go. And I would continue every Saturday going up to that church, just cleaning, just by myself, me and the kids, going home, serving in ministry. And one day, one day, I just, I guess, epiphany of, okay, so marriage is supposed to reflect what? Who? It's a picture of Christ. It's a picture of his church. And I'm like, but that's not what I have. That is not what I have. So how do I get that? If now I feel like I never had that, right? So I continued to serve in ministry. And one day I made it, I literally had to make a decision. So if you're going to stay, then you're going to have to give this your all. When Edna was on that street and crack hit, she could have moved at any time she wanted. You talk about your grandma, you talk about all these things. She didn't have to stay on 36th Street. She could have went anywhere she wanted. And she fought to the very end. And so I stayed. And I fought for my marriage. And that's not to say, let me be crystal clear, that I didn't have to keep fighting for my marriage. Because there were other things. But I made a decision to fight. I made a decision to fight. And
From the threat of your grandmother.
yeah. I saw this woman fight for her community. I saw her fight for the crackheads and fight for the divorce and fight for the baby. Like, I saw this. This was modeled in front of me. And so everywhere I went, I remember while at the Potter's house, I met someone. And I don't know if she'll ever, if she'll get a chance to listen to this, but I met a woman named Brenda Tate. And I'm such a North Side girl, so I'm a little rough around the edges in so many ways. And Brenda she was like Michelle Obama and she's like the Black Princess Diana. When she hears it, she's gonna crack up. But she was so just like, gosh, you're like perfect. Who are your mom and daddy? But this woman, she taught me so much. I remember people asking her, even at church, like, who is that girl that you are always with? Who is she? And she literally pulled me into her womb. She was, and I literally, that's what I felt like. I felt like she was carrying me.
Yeah.
And she was Bishop McLaughlin's assistant, his executive assistant. So you can imagine managing the daily life of somebody like him who's larger than life. Like, yet she grabbed me by my hand and she's like, I can help you. I can help you, and I'm going to help you. And we formed a very unlikely friendship. But this woman poured so much into me. Even when I think about the time she took, and all I could think about again, I'm like, Grandma.
Yeah.
And then it didn't end with her. I remember, even in high school, I remember Miss Christine McNair, who was my teacher in the teen parent program at A. Philip Randolph, that for the first time, that teen parent program at the Northside Skills Center was a pilot program, because back then we had Beulah Bill, which is where all of the pregnant girls went. And so the district decided to start another pilot program for teen moms. And they put it over at A. Philip Randolph Northside Skills Center. And so Christine McNair was our instructor, and she had all these pregnant teenagers. You can't even imagine. But the way she was mom, grandma, business coach, life coach. And so I have, and to your question, the significant moments. So, the birth of my child, um, I would definitely say when I decided that I was going to live for Christ, and even with all the humps and bumps and all of that, but the people along the way, Christine McNair, Brenda Tate, um, and Adam Kirk. So I worked for and I did. I've been on some very high profile, high functioning teams. And so one job that I had that was awesome was at Southeastern Grocers. And I worked in the marketing and comms and PR, and got to do some really cool stuff. And my boss was Adam Kirk. And Adam Kirk was the vice president of local marketing. He was from the UK, an Englishman. And Adam, much like Brenda, who didn't know much about really the community of Jacksonville, but he was a consultant coming back and forth literally from the UK, and then he got hired full time. And when he got hired full time and they needed an executive assistant, I just happened to see the posting at didn't know anything about Southeastern Grocers. And so they are the parent company for Winn-Dixie, Fresco y Mas, Harvey's, and Bilo. And so I get this position as on his team as his executive assistant. And we formed this bond. Everywhere he went, he took me. I'm talking about $1 million contracts, but if he was in the room, I would be in a corner somewhere, but I was in the room. He taught me business. He taught me how to negotiate contracts, like the things this man exposed me to. This little girl from 36 in Moncrief, the trust this man had, this Englishman from the UK. It was unreal. And the things I got to touch because he said I could and he believed I could. And so when I think about people like Adam Kirk, right? Brenda Tate, Christine McNair. And I know I haven't said because somebody, why is she not mentioning her parents? Because they're in a category all by themselves, and that's another podcast. But trust me, my mama is the truth. Shout out to Miss Eddie Bush, Miss Sophia, Miss Vera. That's my girl. But I think of them, and I was thinking about them one day. I say, you know what? And only the Holy Spirit could have given me that. I say, but they're like my others. Everybody needs the others.
The others, yeah.
And so when the others for me are the people that will give you opportunities, the people that will teach you, people that will empower you, not just encourage you. Like sometimes you need a cheerleader, but sometimes I need you to physically put it in my hand and show me what to do with it. Empower me, right? You need people that will remember you, that will come back and get you, that will say, you know what, that girl, that guy, somebody that will remember your value, remember your worth, and won't leave you behind because they know how important you are, at least to them. And then when I thought about it, I said, the S, somebody that'll stay the course, good or bad, whatever you go through, on the job, at home. We need the others. And that's what I saw on 36th Street. Those people stayed. They remembered. They empowered. They weren't just coaches and cheerleaders. They put it in our hand. So when I worked on that bio, when I worked at Southeastern Grocers, like I never thought I would have been doing commercials. Like I was in store 7, which was like they would probably get me for this, but it was like the Publix of Winn-Dixie, this new store. And here I am doing commercial, like real life commercials. Like they paying me to do this. I'm sitting with these big executives on these ad campaigns, like making decisions about, pricing it. Me is blowing my mind. Opportunity. Someone's teaching me. Someone's empowered. Somebody remembered me. Someone stayed the course with me.
The power of community.
And so that has been my life. And so family empowerment at the Potter's House, I know it probably seemed like I worked that as a full-time job because it's just that important to me to see families empowered, not just encouraged, but empowered and equipped.
We talk about full circle moments here. And now that I can look at your life, I'm going to guess.
Guess on.
You run a company because the people before you, the Adams, believed in you and taught you.
Yeah.
Cleaning gives you life.
Yeah.
And family is your thread.
Yeah.
And your whole life right now is a full circle moment.
It is. It is. I'm doing exactly what I want to do. I want to serve God. I want to serve His people. I want to serve this community. I want to serve families. I want to go into homes where there's chaos, where parents are like, "Oh my gosh, we can't do both. We can't raise our children and clean. Please help us." Do you know how? My heart, like that level of trust for someone to invite you into their house and say, you have something that I need. Please help me. Help me make this space not look like that. And however you do that, I'm fine with it. I'm going to pay you. Do what you do. So when I walk into a home and those families are in there, or I walk into a building and those employees I take it very personal. These are lives. These are people that are connected to other people that are connected to you, connected to me, connected to your staff, connected to the Potter's House, wherever they are in this city, there's a connection. And so whatever I can do to thread that, whatever trauma I've had, whatever vulnerability, however I've had to expose my pain and talk about my marriage and talk about, when I've walked out on my children, like literally, the family empowerment ministry leader walked out on her children and her husband. Yes, she did. I had enough.
And you came back.
And so when I tell families, I know.
Yes.
Baby, I know. I know. Marriages, I know. When someone's, I just can't serve God, I know how you feel. They don't see me in this company. I know how you feel. I know.
I think sometimes as I'm talking to people and I'm listening, so what we believe about purpose is that you bring your purpose into all your roles. I feel like your grandmother created in you the gift of structure that brings safety.
Mhm.
And if I look at your life, you are now a creator of structure that gives safety for families, for your family. It's such a beautiful purpose.
Yeah. And so that probably can lead into Duval County Public Schools and what a parent leader
Good.
is.
And then we'll ask the closing question.
Yes, that's
Okay.
a segue. That's a good segue. So, as we all know, people are always people. The people. Who are the people? The theys. Who are the theys? That's like saying, who is they? Parental involvement is such a hot topic, when it comes to crime and like where are the parents? How if the parents were more involved, if they did this and did this and did this. And one thing that I often tell organizations and schools, and no matter you don't get parent involvement without active parent engagement. So how are you engaging families, or how are you doing that? What's your engagement? And that was always my first question. The parents aren't involved. Are you engaged? Now show me how you're doing that. And so with Duval County Public Schools, they have allowed us to take advantage of parent leadership opportunities. And so recently, about 5 years ago, they started an initiative called Parents Who Lead. And so these are a group of parents. I was in that very first cohort that we are pretty much kind of molded. Um, and your natural gifts and talents as a mom, a grandmother, an aunt, an uncle, a caregiver, and those natural abilities, leadership abilities that you already possess and you already have in your home, that you're already doing. You're a business owner. You're your son's coach. You're a grandmother. You're an aunt. You're TT. You're auntie. You're a godmother, and so it teaches families how to advocate for other families and how to do that on a national level, how to do that on a local level, right here in Jacksonville. And so the parent leadership role with Duval County Public Schools is very near and dear to a lot of people because it allows them to pull from a group of parents that can represent the district and represent the community in various ways, whether it's at Kids Hope Alliance, or maybe you need parents to speak at an event, or you just need a parent to sit in and hear another point of view. And so they help these parents. I'm actually facilitating a cohort now of a group of parents, myself and another young lady, Monique Tukes. And so what we do, we teach parents how to advocate, how to not just advocate for their children, but how to advocate in the community for families as a whole and for children and families. And so that's in a nutshell what that parent leadership is all about. So
living out your purpose.
yeah, so that is my other.
I mean, I even think about like how your grandmother modeled intentionality for you.
Yes.
I mean, that's really what the engaged parent, right?
Yeah.
Is
Intentional.
Yeah.
And there's no no format for it. No one has parent engagement and parental involvement on lock. So that's not true. You do what you can with the resources that you have and the space that you have. So as a parent, if engaged for you is, hey, I'm going to check in and send an email, every quarter or every month just to check, fine. That's an engaged parent. The engaged parent is not the parent, or not always the parent, that's at every school advisory council meeting or PTA meeting or on every field trip. We have to, just like in our community, we take the individuals that make up our community, and those individuals, we're able to use the resources that they have, what they bring to the table. So a lot of our parents, they have what they bring to the table, just like in any community. What do you bring to the table? Okay, let's see what we can do with that.
It's giving a chance for people to live out their purpose.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. Okay. I have one last question for you.
Okay.
You shared a lot of things and practical things. And I think a lot of people will be able to relate to you. So our listeners, what is your final word? What do you want to leave them with?
It's a good question. I'm glad this isn't scripted. So just so y'all know, it's not scripted.
It's not scripted.
What do I want to leave your listeners with? Believe you can. Believe you can get out. Believe you can go on. And only you know what that out and that on is. Know what your legacy is. What is it that you are going to leave behind? Know that. You're going to leave something behind. So whatever that is, make sure that it's what you want, that you want to be remembered for. Whether it's love, compassion, patience, not those tangible things, those things you can't buy. So look at your life. How do I want to be remembered?
And I'm just going to speak over you that I think your grandmother would be so proud of your legacy. So thank you for sharing.
I didn't come on here to cry.
And thank you, listeners, for listening. Please, please, please like and subscribe, comment. If you have questions for Tiffany, you can leave them in the comments. We will be doing training. Probably our training will be complete probably by the time you hear this. So maybe we can do an update to see how it went. And check out rethreaded.com. And that's all. And thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of our community. Thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you.